Good morning. Welcome to Brittany on the Bluff, brought to you each weekday by Key Drugs, Whitworth's Gift Chest Jewelers, First Community Bank, and today's computers in Poplar Bluff. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. One of my favorite topics that we get to do each month, and that's our visit with the Missouri Conservation Agents. Frank and John in the studio with us this morning. Are you trying to muffle your microphones? What are you doing there?
The microphone's on. We're trying to remember which side we're supposed to talk into.
Okay, to point the arrow toward you. See the little arrow there?
I don't see the arrow.
You don't see the little arrow there on the bottom?
Oh, okay.
Turn it. There you go. Now say something.
Hi, how are you doing?
Much better. Much better. Try yours,
You
Frank.
can tell we
There
haven't
we
had
go.
coffee yet this morning, can't you?
Oh, my goodness. Well, it sounds, I was listening, got kind of eavesdropping on these guys telling their stories to each other. Sounds like you were out late.
Didn't get much
Or
sleep
early or something,
Didn't
I'm
get
not
much
sure.
sleep this weekend.
Yeah, what was up with all that?
Just a lot of phone calls.
You know, that's one thing. People may not realize you're kind of on call most of the time, aren't you?
Yeah, we get a call at 1:30 in the morning. You got to go, and then you get another one at 4 o'clock in the morning. You got to go again. So,
And
yeah.
what were you dealing with, poachers or something?
Suspicions. Yeah.
Suspicion of poaching?
Yeah.
Well, I hope you catch them.
Well,
That,
I
that
made-
irritates me.
I made one vehicle stop, but I don't think it was the same.
Don't think it was the right one, huh?
But anyways, yeah, it's you'd have this time of year. That's why we look forward to this time of year so much.
Yeah,
We
it's-
go through deer season, and you kind of have this human tendency to want to, relax and go, deer season's over.
It's over.
Well, it's just started. I mean, the night calls just start at that. Well, actually, they started back in September, but you can usually do better early season because they're more prone to be out there, more activity, illegal activity before season. There's not as much this time of year, but it's real sporadic.
Really?
Yeah, so you never know. It might be, Christmas Eve, or it might be, when you're sitting down for Thanksgiving or something, but you never know when you're going to get a phone call.
So are these people that didn't get their deer during the season and they're just still trying?
Either that or they've had enough of shopping for Christmas, one of the two. I don't know if it's
and
camping.
just need to get away
Yeah,
from
maybe
the
they
shopping. Yeah.
Maybe they just need to get out of the house
I
for
never
a while.
even thought about that. That may be the reason.
But you can do that in legal fashion. You don't need to do it at
That's
2 or
right.
3 o'clock in the morning.
That's exactly right. So we've kind of finished up deer season.
We finished up
How-
deer
how
season.
did
We
we
were
do?
up. John, we were up about 6,000 deer, weren't we?
No, 10.
10,000.
10,000.
167,000 and some change, and it was about a 10,000
Wow.
deer increase from last year, which last year was the worst on record for several years. So it was a plus. We did come up. Of course, we just finished the antlerless portion, which we're not in down here,
Right.
and it was a little less than last year. And so right now, the way it sets with the archery, the regular firearms deer season, and the antlerless portion and the early youth portion, all combined, we're about 4% above last year. So it is an improvement, and depending on what county you were in, some counties did better, did considerably better than last year. We did pretty good here in Butler County. We were up over 100 deer from last year, so it's it just depends on which county that you're
Right,
talking about.
sure.
But overall, it's about what was expected. We knew that the deer numbers got kind of brought back down by the EHD that we had, the blue tongue, if you will, for deer. And so anyhow, we kind of expected to have lower kills for 2 or 3 years. So this was pretty good that we bounced back as good as we have.
Yeah.
We were shocked as
That's
much.
good to know.
Because you have most of the deer you're taking are not this year's deer. You do take some, but predominantly a lot of your harvest, your 2.5-year-olds, 3.5-year-olds. We didn't see much for very good bucks last year, mature bucks in the harvest. This year we really bounced back. We saw a lot of really nice
Wow, that's good.
bucks, a lot of heavy, large 8-pointers. The taxidermists were very happy. Most of the hunters were very happy. But there was enough of these adult bucks being taken that, you know, it kind of discourages other people, you know, because they see all these pictures on their Facebook or whatever, and all since, you know, they think that everybody can kill a big buck every year, and it doesn't work that way.
Well, of course not. I know people who have deer hunted for years and have yet to take one.
Right. It's just
For
if
years.
you're in the right
know,
place at the right
There's
time,
so much to it, isn't
you
there?
can do your homework, but you know, most of those deer are just kind of bouncing off the hunting pressure. So it's kind of like going out there and buying a Missouri lottery ticket. You
Kind
just-
of like
you
that,
don't
isn't
know,
it?
You don't know if you're going to hit or not.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. You're right. Well, what counties actually saw the largest harvests this year? Do you know?
They were, well, Texas County was way up there.
yeah.
Of course, they always are. Here locally, Wayne County was the, you know,
Was it?
biggest harvest we had here in the region, so they did really well up there. But you know, most of the counties are further north than us that have the big harvest. But overall, you know, it's kind of a situation that the harvest has came up in a lot of the southern counties, and you know, we're one of them. Stoddard County is another, you know, success story. They have a good deer harvest every year. And we're even seeing good deer harvest in the Boot Hill, you know, places that you really wouldn't expect to see very many deer.
More than you would think they're taking out of those counties.
Gosh, I wouldn't even know where to go hunting in the Boot Hill. Very few places.
Well, typically some of the best hunting is along the river systems. There are
kinda
some
makes sense,
some
yeah.
big tracts of timber down there, and obviously they hang to that as cover, you know, during nighttime hours, and they travel more early morning, evening types. But most of your cover down in the Boot Hill, which they have to have cover, is near those big chunks of timber or along the river systems.
Some of the major drainage ditches too, floodway ditches and places like that, where there's in the St. Francis and Mississippi, the different river systems that provides you know, better cover for them. And you know, of course, most of it's private down there, and a lot of the deer, there's some really big deer come from down in that area. We saw a picture of one that came, of course, that was off the state area down at Wilhelmina, and it was a really nice buck that came from down there. So you know, it's kind of amazing. You see some of these bigger deer come out of these areas that are, you know, everybody thinks the traditional deer areas, the big woods, but some of these bigger deer come from the ag areas.
Wow.
We had the biggest newspaper had their big buck contest, and the big buck came out right there down by Neelyville, and it
Isn't
was
that something?
it was huge. John and I saw a huge one down there. We don't know if it's the same one that he took later, but it resembled it, and the one we saw was huge. And the one he killed was huge. So maybe there's still one left down there.
Could be. Could be.
I wouldn't doubt it a bit. There's some good cover down there. You know, the conservation department has ground down on the state line, and you know, it's got a lot of good cover. These deer can hide out in some really thick stuff, and they can get old in there. You know, most of the big deer are ones that are smart enough that whenever the shooting starts, they find some place and hide out for a while.
That's how they get so big, isn't it?
That's exactly right.
This one big one we saw was out 11:30 Saturday morning, opening morning, right out in the middle of a rice field, and he was so big and fat he could barely trot.
Man, I'd like to see that.
He was big.
Wow.
Of course, we have, you know, also we still have deer season going on. We have the archery season. It resumed right after the farms portion ended, and it will go through January the 15th. And we have two more firearms portions. We have the alternative methods portion, and that comes in on December the 20th and goes through the 30th. And then we have the late youth portion, which is January 3rd and the 4th. So we still have quite a bit of deer
Yeah.
season left.
Do you see as many kids out on that second youth
We're
portion?
we're starting to see more. I mean, we went from a couple of years ago. This used to be the muzzleloader season. It used to be only the muzzleloader season, and it would come in just a couple days after the regular firearms deer season went out. It would come back in on the Friday after Thanksgiving or Saturday after Thanksgiving, and you know, the deer had already had all this hunting pressure on them, all this activity out in the woods, and it wasn't very good. It wasn't a good situation. People had enough of firearms deer season. The deer were went into, they just weren't moving if they were, it was at nighttime. Now you have enough time between the two seasons, it won't start till the 20th now, that they're back in their normal modes.
Gives them a little time to settle down.
Gives them a little time to settle down. Now, granted, we've already taken out 167,000 deer out of the woods, plus whatever you took during youth weekend and archery seasons. And a lot of people stop archery hunting. That's back in now also, and that even coincides with this alternative method season. It does not shut down during alternative method season. So, but we see a decline in archery interest after firearms deer season because there's not as many deer out there. They've already spent a lot of time in a tree stand.
Yeah.
But there are some people still archery hunting. The alternative method season now also includes, as the name mentions, other options. Basically everything is legal during our alternative method season, almost. Cannot use a shotgun with slugs. Cannot use a modern rifle either. However, you can't use any rimfire handguns. But you can use any centerfire handgun, which includes some of these things like a Thompson Contender with, let's say, a 243 barrel on it. That's an option. We don't allow for any vertical fore-end or front stocks on it, but they can have a bipod on the front, for that handgun. So they can also use their compound bows on their firearms tag. Let's say they limit it out already on their archery tags. They can use any type of bow during alternative method season. If they have any type of locking device on it, they can use it. If they have a crossbow, they can use it. Crossbow is normally considered a firearm. They can also use what they call an atlatl, which is basically a spear flipper. It's about that throws about a 4-foot spear. They can be fairly accurate if you practice, but I don't think I'd want to throw one out of a tree stand.
Just cannot imagine deer hunting with one of those.
I guess
of course, I have a hard time picturing deer hunting with a handgun too.
It's quite effective depending on what you want to use. Like I said, it's any centerfire cartridge. We get a lot of calls, John, don't we, about, can I use my 9mm and whatnot? Well, what we get into is some of these semi-automatic handguns is sometimes the magazine capacity is too much. They can only capable up to 10 rounds in the magazine plus one in the chamber. And some of these 9mm or 40 calibers have high capacity magazine. They either need to get a different type of magazine or open up the magazine from the bottom and put some type of block that's not easily removable, and then put the magazine.
And that's legal? To do that?
If you
that's interesting.
disabled your magazine down to the point where it could only take 10 or less. But anyways,
interesting.
We got to be honest with people though too. I mean, I don't recommend they go out with a 9mm or a 380 and try to take a deer, because 9 times out of 10, or I should say 99 out of 100, they're going to cripple the deer and they won't find it.
Right.
Or they'll kill it and they won't find it. So you just got to use a little common sense as far as use something that has enough knockdown power to take the deer down, and also use something that's accurate enough and make sure you are competent with that handgun.
That's just so weird. So what is the purpose of the alternative methods season?
It gives people opportunities to use these other techniques that they normally wouldn't get to. We had a pretty good calling of people that were wanting to have a situation where they could hunt with handguns. And in order to address everybody's needs, we just put it all into one season, and we call it the alternative methods season. So it gives a lot of different opportunities to people that want to try these unique ways. Some of them, that's very important to them that they get to do that. Of course, they are allowed to use, as Frank, told about, all the archery techniques as far as longbow, crossbow, all these different things that they normally couldn't.
Right.
The crossbow, the only people that can use it normally are people that have a handicap permit or a permit that they've got physical difficulties using a regular longbow. But it gives everybody this chance to be able to use these different types of techniques. And some of the people, want a pure handgun season, so that's the way we addressed it. It gives them that opportunity to go out there. There are people that would love to see it just, they have their own little muzzleload season. But the fact is, it gives everybody this opportunity, and it's unique. We have a lot of different deer seasons, and this is another segment of our farm's deer season that we've expanded to these other techniques.
It's not only a good novelty, it's also a real good time. You have kids come back from out of state, whether they're married with children, whether they're at college. Maybe they didn't get to come home during the regular firearms deer season. It's really a good time to get family together and go out. Also, there's not as much hunting pressure out there. You've taken all these other deer, all these other people are tagged out. There's not as many people out there, so you have more natural deer movement. You're a little less likely to bump into another deer hunter if you plan your hunt, correctly. So it's just a good time to go out. One of the questions that comes up also is, if I'm hunting on one of your state areas, state conservation areas, special regulations apply to most of our conservation department properties. And for instance, our waterfowl areas do allow for some archery hunting, or let's say Cork Woods at Neelyville, which is kind of a natural area. We only allow archery hunting. Normally a crossbow is considered a firearm in the state of Missouri unless you have an archery exemption based on a handicap of some sort. You still cannot use that crossbow on that area during their alternative method season without an exemption. Because it's still considered a firearm. Does that make sense?
Right. During the alternative method season, you're hunting on a firearms permit. So it's considered to be a firearms technique, even though you're using a crossbow. If you go in one of these special areas where it's restricted to archery only, you wouldn't be able to do that unless you're somebody that's got the
exemption,
and a physical exemption permit to give.
And one of the reasons we do that is just for simplicity. When we tell people that crossbow is considered a firearm unless you're exempt, then that's the same way across the board.
Right.
You don't have to list any exceptions. So it's for simplicity and interpretation is the reason that exists. So anyways, you could be out there archery hunt on unfilled archery tags. You could be doing that right now. But during alternative method season, you could also have somebody hunting on their firearm tag with, during that alternative method season, which before we didn't allow. If we had somebody that was tagged out, they got their 2 deer by archery methods before the muzzleloading season, we did not allow them to archery hunt during the muzzleloading season on a firearms tag. During the regular firearms deer season, we allow for them to hunt with a bow on a firearms tag if they want to. But that's changed, and now they can during the...
When did that change?
When we changed it to the alternative methods season.
So it's been a few years at least.
Well, it's been a few years.
So we obviously took more deer than you guys expected would happen this year.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we don't really like to do, we like to cast scenarios, what might happen, because we don't have a crystal ball. Deer biologist is usually pretty close to being correct, so we hang our hat on what he tells us. That's his job. He does a very good job at that. But personally, we were happily surprised, that the harvest was good as it was. Really surprised we saw the mature bucks we saw, because we just didn't see them last year. We just didn't see them come out of the woods. We didn't see them harvested. We didn't see the pictures.
Right.
Taxidermists didn't see them.
We had about the craziest weather you could imagine for the firearms deer season. We started off with that bad cold, for the first couple of days there, and then, we ended up with We had some wet weather and we had windy weather throughout. I mean, it was
bad
just
some
a
of the
whole
days, yeah.
wintry mix, we had a little bit of everything, and had the snow. I mean, that was unique for me. I mean, in all the years that I've worked for the conservation department, I can't remember having that much snow on the ground. Butler County had more than a lot of other areas, but we had more snow on the ground than I can ever remember during a deer season. I remember having light skiffs of snow, but not like we had. So it was a unique deer season. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of people went out, myself included, because we were busy opening weekend. We got that snow on a Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the chance of my day off to go out on, hunting the snow. A lot of other people did too. If they had the opportunity, they jumped out there. But it was still cold. Not as cold as it was over the weekend. It got down like to 9 degrees, I think, Saturday or Sunday morning. And we kind of pitied the people in some of these campers without heat or tents. But anyways, jumped out there in the snow, and it was cold. It warmed up, but that snow made things a little chillier with the moisture in the air. And thought maybe it'd be good, maybe you can do some tracking. Much easier to do
That's
some.
what I would have been thinking.
Much easier to do tracking in the snow. But we had a situation where it also got windy afterwards, so it was knocking a lot of that snow out of the trees. And believe it or not, we didn't have very good deer movement that Monday and Tuesday during that, right after that snow. Of course, a lot of it that had to do not necessarily with the snow, but the tremendous hunting pressure opening weekend.
Well, sure, yeah.
But then again, they don't move any more than they have to, and then you get the second weekend, and again, you still get a fairly large number of people out there helping move the deer around, so you have a good hunting situation. But I wanted to get out there and say, I've deer hunted in the snow. And thinking back, I probably did when I was a kid, but like John mentioned, it may be not that deep of a snow. And oddly enough, like he mentioned also, you go to Elsinore and there wasn't any snow. So it was kind of localized where that snow hit.
We had more snow stayed on the ground longer here than it did in a lot of these other counties around. So it was kind of interesting that we were kind of stuck with here in Butler County, but he's talking about as far as tracking deer in the snow. I tried that one time in a managed deer hunt, and I got on a hot track, and it's hard to do. I never did ever get to see the deer, but I could find where it would stop and turn around and stand sideways and look over its back track, and then it would take off. I guess whenever I got close enough, it seen me or smell me or something, and then it'd break and run for a while, and then it'd start walking again. And we did this for a long time, and finally I decided, deer 1, me 0, and I quit.
Then you tried the still hunting method.
Yeah, well, no, I tried to find my way back to the truck method.
That too,
Yeah.
So it's hard to say. Sometimes they move during or snow or after, but typically all these critters move better right beforehand, right before that storm hits, right when you're having that pressure change, and barometric pressure change. That's what they're going to move right before front. Usually after front, not so good. Same thing with fishing right after front, not so good.
Exactly.
I think deer have a tendency probably to find them some thick stuff and stay there. I believe they probably realize that they're brown and snow's white, and they show up, so they... A lot of times I think they kind of...
Dummies, are they?
Yeah, right. They'll hide out for a day or so, and then before they actually start moving after a snow.
They might not be able to see blaze orange, but they can tell the difference between dark and light, no doubt.
I started to say it would be very, very difficult for you to blend in with that snow.
And I'm sure some people are, it's like, oh boy, it's snowing, I get to use my snow camo that's been in my closet for 10 years, but...
Never used.
It's almost yellow because I haven't used it for so long. But actually, when you go out in the snow, the trees still aren't white. I mean, your regular camo works just fine.
I always, of course, your memories are always... more exaggerated than you really believe, and I'd always talked about it being so cold during deer seasons whenever I was growing up, and my kids, they hunted the opening weekend, and they was talking about how cold it was, and they said, Dad said, how did you get by, back then? And I said, well, we were pretty tough back then. But I really don't remember it being down in single digits whenever I used to deer hunt.
And that's when you walked a couple miles to school.
Right, uphill both ways.
Yeah.
Well, since we had such a good harvest this year, is that going to change anything for next year? Because that was obviously something that wasn't really expected.
What he projected, and of course, you don't know what's going to happen between now and then.
No, of course not.
You could have another, outbreak of EHD, or just hard telling that you may get a failed acorn crop. You don't know what'll happen between now and then, and what kind of winter you're going to have this winter. But we're set up. We had a pretty good acorn crop. We got a fair amount of food out there. It depends how hard the winter is. But what the deer biologist had projected from the last blue tongue or EHD, hemorrhagic disease outbreak, is he said we'd have 2 lower years. This one was the second of the 2. So with any luck, our harvest next year will be up even a little bit more. Maybe another 10,000 deer.
Sure, yeah.
One thing they did as far as this past firearm season, they cranked back the number of antlerless deer permits. Used to, there were a lot of counties in the state you could buy unlimited antlerless permits and use them there. And they cranked it back. There's some counties not very many, that you could use 2. Most of them, they went back to 1 antlerless permit, and in addition to they could purchase that in addition to any deer permit. So it cut the antlerless harvest back. That was in response to the lower deer numbers, and
well, that was really more what I was referring to.
Right.
Are the regulations? Do you foresee any changes next year in the regulations because of the good harvest?
No, they should be real similar to this year's. And what John was talking about was firearms antlerless.
Yeah.
We had one point in time had unlimited in most of your northern Missouri counties around the St. Louis and Kansas City areas, and they're all back down to 1, except for the few counties right around that hot CWD area. I could say hot CWD area. I guess we've just had our 11th confirmed, quote, wild CWD deer identified here recently in Adair County. But those counties that allow for the 2 antlerless permits besides the any deer permit are all in that area. The rest of the counties, like John mentioned, had just reduced down to the 1 firearms antlerless. Now, a lot of those counties, or most of those counties, still have unlimited antlerless archery permits. But there's no doubt that there's a lot more impact with firearms antlerless permits than archery antlerless permits.
I don't think I could ever hit a deer with an arrow. I just don't think I could ever do it. But that being aside, it seems like when you have an unlimited season of anything like that just kind of opens the doors for those, and granted, I don't think most hunters are this way, but there's a few bad apples in any group.
Well, I think everybody came to that same consensus and also agreed that, that was designed to reduce the deer herd.
Right.
And,
that's the whole purpose of the hunting
and
season.
Get a buck-to-doe ratio a little closer to 1-to-1. And the antler restriction, a lot of those counties are still there to promote doe harvest, to keep that balance in check a little bit closer. You'll see more bigger bucks that way. They got to move around more to find that doe.
Yeah.
But we've pretty much achieved that now, and of course, when we've been doing that for several years, and then you had the blue tongue or EHD outbreak on top of it statewide, it reduced the deer population, the deer herd, down a little bit lower than maybe we really wanted it
to be.
So that's why the regulation changed. The regulations you saw this year will probably be that way for a while.
We're trying to balance the deer management with a lot of other interests, as far as you have damage to agricultural crops from deer depredation. Then you also have the people that hit them with their automobiles that don't enjoy doing that, and I can see why. But fact is, we're trying to reduce the number down to prevent as much of this bad situations occurring. And as Frank said, we had been pulling the number down in a lot of these counties with this unlimited archery or antlerless firearms tags, but then Mother Nature did it for us, and we got the numbers pulled down to the level we wanted and then some. So
what happens is, and we teach this in hunter education, there's a fine balance between how many animals that the habitat can support. It's called carrying capacity. That's the maximum. The closer you are to that carrying capacity or over carrying capacity, the higher likelihood you're going to have of a widespread disease. You're always going to have,
which makes perfect sense.
You're always going to have disease, but disease always occurs more so when population numbers are higher, whether it's deer or humans or anything else. And when you have real high densities of animals, you're going to have a lot higher probability of disease, and it'll take a higher percentage of the population. So, like John said, Mother Nature took care of that for us, but that, in combination of heavy harvest, might, take us down a little bit lower than we want to be. But it's a juggling act. Deer management is not an easy thing. But
to try to find that balance.
To try to find that balance, our biologists have always done a banner job on it, and that's why we still have the harvest we're having.
Well, this is kind of off the subject, but we had a news story this morning about the elk herd, and that we've definitely seen some growth in the herd, but not quite enough to start issuing those few permits yet. Mm-hmm. Have you guys heard any word on when they think that number might be hit?
Oh, we probably won't hear any inklings of it till we get into our meetings the next couple months.
Oh yeah.
But they had a target number, but they have to start talking about it first, and then when they pass the regulation, then it'll take probably at least a year after that. But
wow!
So it's not going to be
at least
anything immediate.
Year and a half, 2 years down the road,
probably,
minimum.
Right.
On those, they're talking like maybe 30 to 40 permits issued each year when it reaches that level.
Right.
Of course, as the herd gets bigger, there'll be more permits later on down the road. How are those permits going to be made available? Is it one of those lottery kind of a deals where everybody applies and then they just draw?
It'll most likely be similar. And again, we're just guessing, and what the price and everything else, we don't know. But obviously, it's got to be a draw or a lottery type system, luck of the draw type deal, where you would have to get drawn and then purchase a tag. Like, for instance, when you get drawn for one of these special management hunts and you go to any permit vendor, the only people it allows to purchase that permit are people that have been drawn.
So it'll be like that, probably.
So it'll be like that.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I was just, kind of hoping that it wasn't going to be one of those deals that ended up where only the wealthiest people in our state could afford to get
we don't know that yet. Hard telling what kind of price tag will be on it. You don't know. They might have a lower price tag just to encourage people to draw.
To apply, huh?
Yeah.
Boy,
don't know.
Fun.
I had the opportunity to see.
I
had the opportunity to see a free-ranging elk yesterday.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
Wow, where were you at?
I can't really divulge it.
Oh, okay.
It was on private property, and
wow.
Anyhow, he's been there since October. It's
Really?
a bull. He doesn't have extremely large rack on him, but he's been there since October, and
give him time.
They're making sure that he's safe.
Wow.
And nobody's going to bother him. And I got a chance to see him yesterday, and that was the first one of these.
So the landowner's okay with him being
Yes.
Oh, well,
yes.
that's good.
And I got the chance to see him yesterday, and it was unique. That's the first free-ranging wild elk I've got to see in the state of Missouri. So I went up to Peck Ranch 2 or 3 different times to try to see him up there.
Yeah, you had been up there.
Didn't have any
Didn't
luck,
see 'em.
but anyhow, I got to see one yesterday.
Now, see, I've got to see one in Butler
Were
County.
you lucky to?
Well, that was
What?
back. That wasn't one of ours, so.
It was still a free-ranging wild elk. They came up from Arkansas.
Really?
Yeah.
How
Yeah,
long
we had
ago
one
was
visit
that?
several years ago.
We've
Well,
had two.
I'll
We've
be
had two 5x5s
darned.
here. We've had one probably 15 years ago, and another one probably 8 or 9 years ago.
So if a say a farmer, if they get on their land, can they call you guys and
Yeah, matter of fact,
And
they're
have
encouraged
'em-
to do so. But you get two
Herd 'em
different
back down south
you get
again,
two
or-
different you get two different reactions. They do have this
Yeah.
elk management area around where they're released from Peck Ranch, and a lot of most of the private landowners in that area are very protective of them, as John mentioned, and are even doing elk management on their own property to encourage them to use it. But then if they get a little bit farther away, which we've only had one or two do it, get down to ag ground, now the farmers aren't too happy with them down there typically.
I imagine they could do a lot of damage.
They could do some damage.
With their
But
size
there have
and
been very little problems.
Well, I'm so excited about it. Just the fact that these animals used to be here naturally, and we kind of, as mankind, kind of
Push
decimated
push
them,
them to
basically.
the side a little
Yeah.
bit and thinned them out.
So I'm really excited about just the chance of seeing one someday.
Right. Now, we've never had them. Missouri's never been one of the states that we ever had them in high densities. But, from
But we did
here
have 'em.
from here west, that we did have them.
They're starting to spread out more from the Peck Ranch, where we released them all.
Right.
And some of them are now on the other side of the river. They're over on the Reynolds County side. They're back in Current River State Forest or Conservation Area now. So, they're moving about, and they're kind
Well,
of
that's good.
finding where they want to stay. So,
That's healthy for them.
right.
For them to be moving and finding the right terrain for them.
Well, that was the whole idea. We didn't really expect that they were ever going to
Stay right
there
there.
on Peck Ranch. Of course, we made it really nice for them to where, they had a lot of food and the cover and stuff there. They were protected, and they're not exactly, easy to see as far as if you're out there on foot. We went over there, Frank and I, and some other people in these managed deer hunts, and we never saw any elk while we were over there.
They
deer
can
hunting.
hide. They're big, but they can hide.
There's plenty of thick places there that they can get, and you won't see them. So they are.
You have
they're
to
pretty-
catch it when they're moving.
Just at the
because
right moment, huh?
There are times they'll be highly visible, and other times just poof, they're gone.
I still want to go up and try to see some.
Well, from what I understand from talking to the people that work there and the agents up in that area, they say that primarily it's an early-late thing. You get
Yeah.
to see them early in the morning
Early
or
in the
late in the evening. Of course, I did try it that one time late in the evening, right, at dark, and saw a lot of deer, but I didn't see any elk.
And you went to an area that reportedly they had been seen
Right,
quite a
right.
bit.
So
And still didn't get
it
to.
didn't work out for me.
Early morning is best, no doubt. But as far as development of a hunt and whatnot, we'll just have to see how it goes.
Well, I've been watching that, 5 years now, 4 years, almost 5 years now. And, it's just one of those, I know there was some backlash when you first started talking about it as a department and that sort of a thing, but I personally think it's thrilling.
It's amazing.
I just think it's cool.
A lot of the people that were maybe not so thrilled about having elk, some of them have really changed their mind about it now.
Have they?
And
Well, good.
they're
I'm glad to hear that.
accepting of them and glad to see them. And I feel
Excellent.
like eventually that we're going to see a lot of tourism dollars come in here
That's
from
what I'm thinking,
people
too.
wanting to come and
Yeah.
see the elk and different things. So I think it's going to be nice for the economy and counties like Reynolds and Carter and Shannon. I mean, those are counties in that elk zone.
They're
and,
going to spread out into the areas that are more remote, and that's the area John's talking about. And a lot of the conflict in the beginning was you didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
It's a change.
I know it was
It's
just
something
concerns
to new.
about damage and
It was
that kind
something
of
new.
thing. Yeah.
People envision slamming into them with cars, and the studies have shown that it's a pretty remote thing that you ever get you ever hit one with a vehicle. Now it does happen, but it's
Right.
it's not common like hitting deer, and I don't think it ever will be for that matter. And a lot of people were concerned about them damaging fences
Yeah.
and
I understand that
different
they had
things like
concerns.
that. But so far, most of the private landowners have been very accepting of them, and some of them have really been happy to see them there. And
Good.
the department
Good
has
deal.
worked with a lot of these private landowners to enhance their property for wildlife, including elk, to do management work on them, provided incentives and dollars, and also in manpower and advice and different things, and they have helped them to develop areas where the elk would like to be there in addition to everything else.
So it's not just good habitat there on Peck Ranch. There's a lot of good areas around it on private,
Yeah.
and they're protective of them. And actually, anytime we've introduced turkey into area years ago, or we wanted deer herds to grow on private lands in certain areas, one of the first things that helps is protecting them. Give them time to multiply, try to relieve them any hunting pressure for a couple of years until they're self-sustaining, and there's no doubt it's worked with the elk.
Well, I just can't imagine anybody that hunts deer not wanting to go on an elk hunt. I mean, how cool.
I think a lot of people do. It's just that it seems pretty remote to them at this point, but you gotta wait, and time has to go
A
past.
few
and
years down the road.
Sure.
Who knows what'll be happening.
And
by
another
then.
thing that's going to probably be considered sometime in the future is a possible bear hunt.
I had heard that.
Yes.
I had
Ozark
heard
region,
that.
they've tagged several bears over there, and they're getting a better feel for where they're at, what kind of densities we have, and what kind of reproduction we've had for a long time.
And they're getting
for a
thick
long time,
enough that they might actually.
for a long time, we didn't think
Wow.
we had any reproduction, and that's kind of where we've been at. And they've checked a lot of these radio-collared bears in their dens to see what kind of production they're getting, and I think they're pleasantly surprised that we already had production. That one instance where you
wow.
have a
Just didn't
17-year-old
realize it.
female and 2 or 3 cubs. I mean, obviously she'd been producing for a while.
Yeah, 17 years old. Yeah, I would think
It's a pretty
so.
old bear.
Yeah, it's amazing she's made it that long, isn't it?
Exactly.
So anyways, bear program seems to be going well also.
Very cool.
Of course, we had the extremely big one that got hit over there in Oregon County. That was a really big bear.
It's like a 600-pound bear.
Right.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is a big bear.
He'd been doing quite
Somebody
well.
hit it with a car?
I think it was actually a truck that hit it, but
Oh my gosh.
it was shown on the news, and they said that the guy thought he hit a cat, but I don't know what kind of cat he thought he hit.
a
Unless he,
600-pound cat.
unless he thought it was like a Black Panther or something, but which we don't have. But he did.
I wonder what that driver been smoking.
I don't know, but
Lack of sleep.
if you hit a
Probably,
600-pound
yeah.
animal, I would think that you would know you hit something.
Even in a truck.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's why, oddly enough,
amazing.
at 60 West, where we have the split highway, are for bear crossings. That was designed into that highway development.
Really?
And we've heard about bears
I'd
crossing there.
heard rumors about
Wow.
that, and I thought it was just speculation, and
Bear crossing.
I kind of thought it was funny. But then we talked to one of the highway department engineers, and he said, "Oh no, that's correct." He said that was engineered into it, that they put
Really?
bear crossings in it. I don't know how the bear knows to go.
I was going to
To that
say
particular area to
that
cross.
area as opposed to
Well,
someplace
they have
down
to
the
go
road.
a shorter distance to cover instead of all the way across
4 lanes.
4 lanes.
Wow.
So-
We needed that with the deer this year. I swear, I saw more deer this year than probably since I was a kid.
But you won't see too many right now.
No, luckily they've kind of gotten off the road for
A
me
lot
finally.
of them are,
Yeah, I saw
in
tons
people's
this
deep
year.
freezes, of course.
Our number reported roadkill deer right now is is really dropped off. It usually does after farms deer season. That's what we want to see. That was a successful harvest. If we don't have many roadkill deer afterwards, we want these deer to be utilized.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we're almost out of time. I can't believe it. Goes by so fast when you guys are here. How about waterfowl? How's waterfowl season this year?
We've got a lot of ducks in the area. Some of them have been trickling south, but we've probably had the same ducks here for at least 5 weeks. So when they first arrive into an area with a cold front, when it was really cold and icy and they had to break ice and whatnot, that's when we picked up all these ducks, probably right at the beginning, right before firearms deer season. Same ducks. They know where to fly, where not to fly now. They got hammered the first couple. They're getting smarter.
Yeah.
They're sticking to the refuges closer, like I said, and they trickle south from here. We pick up a few along the way, but we really need something nasty from the northwest and colder temperatures, and we're talking, well below freezing, to pick up more birds. But now realizing that happens, ours are going to leave. So, but they do pile up, and they've piled up at 10 Mile Pond is holding 60,000 plus ducks.
Wow.
Last I heard, Otter Slough had over 65,000 ducks. Mingo was holding over 60,000 ducks just here a week or two ago. The numbers will still be high. They may not be that high anymore, but those ducks have been there for a while.
Right. So the hunters have probably been happy this year.
Right. I've been seeing a few ducks taken down on Coon Island, which is in Butler County, but not what I had. Plus the weather condition. We had kind of a stagnant weather condition the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you noticed, but yesterday was one of our first sunny days in about the last week and a half.
Yeah, I noticed.
Now, some people might think, cloudy, rainy days are good duck hunt days. No, not necessarily. If it's right before a front, yeah, it can be good. But when you get overcast, we call it even light condition. There's no shadows. The ducks can pick you out a lot easier. Sunny days, very cold, windy days are good duck hunting weather. We've had overcast and almost no wind some days.
Yeah.
Very poor waterfowl hunting. So the duck hunters have been a little bit frustrated. See a lot of the trucks driving around more mid-morning. That's because they didn't do so good.
Yeah. Well, bummer.
So but it'll pick up. I mean, southeast Missouri, the weather will change.
Oh, yeah.
I saw one of the biggest flocks of geese that I have
There's been a lot of those
seen.
trading around here lately.
On Thanksgiving Day, I was driving to southern Illinois for Thanksgiving, and I saw a huge flock of geese.
Over this past weekend, there was a lot of snows and geese flying. There's quite a few moving south.
Now, right now during season, there still is a limit on the snows and blues, and 20 a day, and they have to, they're limited to plugged shotguns. They cannot use recorded calls this time of year. They are taking a few snow geese now, but they'll take a lot more after the regular season when the conservation order opens.
Which
will be after the regular season, after the end of January. But and that'll go through April. But again, that's done on an annual basis, and they have to announce it. But all three zones, I believe, are open right now. The one thing I want to encourage people to do that we found out this deer season, we do every other deer season, before John and I show up to write somebody a ticket, when we show up, the first question out of my mouth anymore is, did you pick up your 2014 fall deer and turkey hunting pamphlet? And most of the time the answer is no. Or, yeah, I got one, but no, I didn't read it. So
I just can't imagine.
I don't know how they're supposed to know this stuff unless they pick one up and read it, and they are responsible to know this, because that's why
those people that have hunted for years, they think they know all the rules, but they forget that some of this stuff changes from time to time.
Changes a lot. Some of it changes, practically yearly, but there's a lot of changes.
So you just can't rely on your past experience.
People just don't slow down enough to take the time to read this stuff. These pamphlets are free. There's no limit on how many they can take. They put one per vehicle, a couple in the house. Sit down, take the time and read it before you go out, because you are responsible for what you do out there when you go hunting and fishing.
And there is the waterfowl pamphlet that's available, and it has everything related to ducks and geese in it, so that's important for them to get one of those to get up on the seasons and all that.
The north,
Absolutely.
we got 3 zones in the state. The north zone opened October 25th, and it'll go through December 23rd. The middle zone opened November 1st and goes all the way to December 30th. The south zone opened November 27th, which is Thanksgiving, and goes all the way to January 25th. So there is a lot of opportunity for waterfowl hunters to travel statewide right now until after the 23rd. They can go anywhere they want to in the state right now.
That might be kind of fun. Go someplace new.
And I've done
Maybe
it.
someplace you haven't hunted before.
We used to go, me and a couple other agents would go. We'd go for 4 or 5 days after, can't hardly go longer than that because stuff gets piled up locally. But
Imagine.
we'd
so.
go anywhere in the state depending on where the duck numbers were. And it is a lot of fun and a lot of these duck hunters do travel. And they can get on there and watch, where the ducks are at and see where the numbers are. See, years ago we just had to guess and do a bunch of driving. Now you can get on the internet and see where the
You've
ducks
got all
are at.
kinds of added little tools to help you
Absolutely.
out now, don't you?
Oh, yeah. You
Well-
can see what the numbers are in areas. And
You'd have to drive. You had buddies in other parts of the state, and you had to make phone calls. It was a network system.
Yeah. Hey, how are they doing down there?
Right.
Wow, very cool. Well, guys, believe it or not, we're out of time.
it went fast.
It does go by awfully quick, and I hope we didn't miss anything.
After we got the mic adjusted, we were good.
That does make a difference, doesn't it? Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in and joining us and kind of keeping us up to date with all these hunting seasons and success stories and so forth. So,
And we'll be back next month.
good.
Exactly.
Good. We look forward to it. Thank you so much. That's it for Brittany on the Bluff for today, but we'll do it again tomorrow right here on Today's Talk, KWOC.
Proud to be your source for local news.